Hello, my name's Jamie, and welcome to my brief introduction to some of the work we've been doing on a GDPR module for Drupal 7 and Drupal 8. So I work with a company called Freely Give, and we have specialized in native Drupal CRM. And so as you can imagine, with native Drupal CRM, GDPR has become very important for a great deal of our clients, as I'm sure it is for a lot of you. Now, we decided to collaborate with Brainsum, who are also doing a great deal of work on GDPR. And you can see this is the module that they've put together. They've done some work, particularly on making it so you can sanitize the database and a checklist to help make sure that your website is GDPR compliant as much as possible, with links to all the relevant places to find out more information. What we've done is focus on almost a GDPR suite, a suite of tools that will be useful for a whole variety of sites. Now, our clients, because again it's CRM, our clients will tend to require a great deal of GDPR compliance that may be above and beyond what many of you will be needing. But those tools being there will be helpful, and it's certainly built in such a way you can turn off the things that you don't need. We're still in alpha, we're still working on it. Nothing is live yet with any of our clients. But I think we're in a place now that if you were to download it, you should get a good idea of the direction that we're heading. A lot of the things that we have to do now are mainly polish. So yeah, I will do a quick run through of those things. This is just our first video, so we'll probably start doing more videos in the future. And also this is for people who already know a little bit about GDPR. We're hoping to do a whole series of blog posts to help you with like understanding legislation, understanding how to use it, and understanding how to change an organization around to make you more GDPR compliant. This today is just focusing on some of the Drupal specific tools that we've built for data protection officers and site builders to move forwards. So this is the module, and you can see more information about that. You can download it here. I'm going to be showing you the Drupal 8 version at the moment, but everything that we're doing, we're probably going to go live with our clients on Drupal 7 before the Drupal 8 one is finished. But everything that you'll be seeing, it's going to be roughly the same in Drupal 7. So the first thing is this dev site. This is roughly speaking using the core themes. We haven't put a lot of effort into making this look good at the moment, but you can see that in your a user profile that somebody can go to find out, edit information about themselves, this new All Your Data tab appears. Now, for some of you, you will want a site where the data is already just there, so somebody can just click it and they can see it and they can copy and paste it. What we believe is that for the vast majority of larger sites and our clients, you're going to need to make it so that people will ask for requests and members of staff in the organization will actually process this. This is because I think that a lot of the time there'll be one or two small things that require a little bit of human input rather than something that can be fully automated. So if we look at my data requests, this is something here, which is the stuff that we've built, and we're probably going to have to tidy this one up a little bit. And there's these two buttons where people can click and request a data export and request to see their data removed. Now, when people request these things, they will find a list. These things appear in a list of tasks. Now, this is a list of tasks aimed at members of staff. So all of these requests come along and how long it's been. Now, obviously, with GDPR, you have 30 days in order to comply with these requests. So this site is an example of a site of someone that is very much not complying with GDPR for now. Obviously, none of these people exist. This is all fake data. So I'll show you first a subject address request. This is what the task will look like, and it's really very basic. A member of staff can download the CSV file if for some reason you need to email it to the person. It will show you who requested it. It might be a member of staff, it might be the actual user themselves. This is the data, which we can now see. And I'm going to talk a bit more about this later, but you can see with right to access is included, but there's also maybe. And this is because for more complex sites, I believe there's going to be a lot of places where you might have information that you want to add. This might be particularly in the notes fields. I think for right to access it's less so, but certainly in right to forgotten, I think maybes are going to be very important. And for the maybes, you can then use this small place to override things. We've tried to just build it so it works. As we improve this module, we're hoping to make things easier. So it will be easier for site builders to change the maybes or add data. I think this will be particularly useful if you have some data that's stored in, I don't know, Excel spreadsheets on somebody's laptop or something, which is not secure, not what you really want to be doing. But if you do, then there's places for a member of staff to add additional things here. Now, when I click process, what will happen? The feature of sending an email is not enabled yet, but that will be something we'll do. So hopefully the end user will get an email. But also they can log in, see my data request, and see the requested date, and then download it. And then they'll get a CSV file. And this is what we've decided for now. We're focusing on a CSV file being the way that we're going to do this. I think this is going to develop and get more advanced, especially when you have multiple entities that attach to a user with multiple complicated relationships. But for now, it's just a CSV file. Now, the second kind of task is a removal request. So I will click here, and you'll find it looks very similar. I'm going to go into more detail about what these different things are, but one of the things that is different is I feel with a lot of right to be forgotten, you're going to need to anonymize some fields, not just remove them. Now, some of you, this is not going to be necessary. You're just going to remove everything, delete everything about them, and that's safer, done, that's simple. For many of you, you will have built reports where there's a whole list of, I don't know, people who've come to events, because we handle events a lot of the time and event bookings. People who come to events and you want to do counts. So you don't want to actually delete the users. Maybe you need to keep them because you have some gift aid information and you need to at least keep some private information. In fact, with gift aid, actually, you need quite a lot. But there might be some legal reason why you need to keep some of the information, like that somebody bought a product and this is how much they paid. But you don't actually need to keep any private information. So what you're going to do is anonymize everything that's private and keep some of it. If that's the case, we've got this anonymize function. I'll go into a little bit more detail when I can show you the field settings. And again, we have the maybe. And maybes, I think, are very likely to be here. There's a lot of our organizations have some way of doing notes. And if you've got some notes, you might accidentally, in the notes, put some private information. You might refer to them by their first name. You might talk about where they are, where they've lived. So a member of staff really needs to come along and just scrub it manually. To be honest, most of the time, if you have a notes field that might have private information, it's probably simplest if you just remove it rather than have this maybe. Then when you click remove and anonymize data, it's going to do everything that it's supposed to do, and then it's going to also anonymize the user account and then block them. Now, the place where you go to set this kind of stuff up is this new GDPR fields. We've been particularly in Drupal 7.1, we put a lot of effort to make this a bit easier, but this is pretty much an advanced version of the core Drupal fields report, and it shows what we believe to be every single field on every single entity linked to the user in some way. I think this will work very well for simple sites. Where it will be more complicated is when you have particularly really complicated stuff like users being able to sign up an account where they add a whole bunch of users which are sort of them, but maybe it's like a family and all the users can log in with their own account, but actually there's a family member who actually owns all of it, and you've got complicated things about who owns data. We're kind of thinking in the future we want a view-style relationships tool where we can actually map out the relationship between all entities. Right now, we're going for the simplest approach of just trawling through the data, starting with the user, and then getting everything that's attached to it in some way. So you can see the biggest, most obvious ones will be profiles, and because, again, native Drupal CRM, most of our data we store in profile fields, in profile entities, and so there's all those fields there. What we've got as well for this page is we're hoping this to eventually be a tool that you can use if you have any auditors. So this is not just going to be for site builders, it's going to be for the DPO, and we've got tools so that they can put in notes. And the idea is these are notes for you to write down the rationale of why you decided to do certain things. You might decide there's a certain piece of information that you won't remove because you worry about fraud. Well, if you write down this in notes, you can remember it, it's there. If anyone asks you, well, why didn't you remove that information, you can say. So what I'll do is I'll show you editing, let's say this. You can see it's not configured. Okay. This also appears, by the way, on the core field settings page. So if you're just adding a new field, you'll see this is a GDPR field. And we can click yes or no. And then we've got these two options here. So for right to access, we've got included, maybe, or not included, as per the previous discussion. And then right for the bottom, we've got anonymized, remove, maybe, not included. Now, if we decide to anonymize, there's a variety of sanitizers that we've used. And these work alongside the BrainSums sanitizers used for when you're exporting the data. That tool is mainly for if you're going to export data onto, let's say, dev sites. A simple tool to be able to sanitize everything so that you're not constantly moving people's private data everywhere. And you can see there's a lot of different sanitizers for different data types. And we're going to slowly add to this. Date, we'll just set it to, I think it's 01011000. Email will bring everything to example.com. Passwords, that's just going to be random. Usernames, we attach the prefix anon followed by something random. So it means that if you ever do see a list of usernames and you haven't hidden them in some way, then at least you can see, well, this is anonymous, not some, spam bot. And then finally, we have notes, which is, again, your rationale behind this. Now, that is the core of handling right to be forgotten, right to be accessed. The other thing is to do with consent. And there's a lot of complicated things in GDPR regarding consent. So we've built a few tools there to improve that. And it's very similar to the legal module that you may have already seen. The reason why we felt we couldn't use a legal module was the legal module currently only supports really one privacy policy. And it is my belief that with GDPR, you're going to have to move away from just this one giant blanket privacy policy for the whole site that people accept or they don't. Although having said that, some organizations, such as Facebook, have chosen not to go in that direction. But we believe that it's going to be better to make it so that people have to consent only to the specific things that they want. If you're an organization that holds a multitude of different functions and have different reasons why people might be signing up to different things, we think it's important to have lots of different consent agreements and for that to be right there on the form that they apply to. So we've moved it into explicit and implicit consent. In explicit consent, well, let me click and show you one of them. So the title is just for administrative purposes. It's for your internal use. The description, like I said, this is alpha. We're probably going to have to improve some of the wording on things like that. But the description is what will appear on the form. It's what they'll actually see. They'll see something like, will you consent to receiving marketing information from us? And then they're going to see a little question mark. And then next to that question mark, they click a button and they see the long description, which allows you to put in a lot more information about what they're going to consent to. Then finally, we have notes, which is to do with the rationale behind it, again, for your own internal purposes. If it's explicit, they have to actually click a checkbox. If it's implicit, it's a privacy policy that means that anyone who clicks save on that form has implicitly agreed to doing that. For some organizations, I think this will be very important. Actually, for some of our larger organizations, they probably won't need to actually record an audit trail of when people implicitly consented to certain things. And finally, revision logs, where you can describe what you've made. Like the legal module, the revisions are very important. When somebody consents, we will keep records of that they've consented to a specific revision of this wording. So if for some reason somebody comes along and complains and says they consented to something, and then you say, no, this is what privacy said, and said it wasn't that at the time, we've got a record of, no, this is exactly the wording that they read at the time that they clicked consent to it. Now these agreements, they appear as fields. So once I've built these things, I can add these things using any kind of field management tools that you've got. We've had to do some advanced stuff with fields because of the native Drupal CRM. And so for us, we've been using something called Flexiform. But what I will do is for now just show you how it would look in the core Drupal way of handling fields. So we've got these profile types, I've made a communications profile, and here's the different fields, and there's a new field type called GDPR consent. So if I edit that field, you can see here that I've added this field to it, and I can select the specific agreement. and it saves it as data on that profile. So if you tick that checkbox, that's a checkbox that is there. That means that you can put it into views. That means that you can build rules off of it. It's just a field like every other. You could almost use it as a Boolean, but it's a bit more complicated because it has revisions, it has wording, and it keeps an audit trail. I'm going to give you a brief look at some of the stuff that we've done with native Drupal CRM. I won't go into much detail, but I want to show you what this could look like from a staff point of view. Now, the core Drupal that we've released, the core module that we've released for Brainstorm is not assuming that you're using any of our Drupal CRM stuff. So a lot of these functions you can get through the user dashboard as well. But here is a tab. So now I can see the particular tasks that they've done. I can request data removal, and as a member of staff, I can type on notes. So maybe most of the time I won't recommend this, but you might have a reason why somebody emails in or phones in or writes a letter to be asking to be removed. Now, I'm not too keen on this stuff because how can you ever know that the person who's written the letter is exactly them, whereas if they log in and they've got an email and password, you can know they're definitely who they say they are. However, if you've got some reasons why staff need to do it, this is how they'll do it, and they can type in notes of, we received this call, we received this email. And then we can get to the tasks through here. So I'd just like to talk briefly. I'm going to show you my little notes for when I was doing this here. So I'd like to talk to you briefly about a couple of things that are coming up. I've got nothing to, you can see, although it is behind the scenes, with handling of backups and restore, this is a fairly contentious issue that a lot of people have different views about how we're going to do this with GDPR. What we've done is we've taken the idea that every single time anyone's asked to be forgotten, we will store their user IDs and all the information that we need to reapply them being forgotten. So all the fields that were supposed to be removed, etc., etc., etc. And we'll store this in something that can be exportable into a text file. So you could decide to keep it looked after with Git or something else, or you can decide to back it up somewhere else. Because it's very important that this list of people that have been forgotten is not on the same place as your Drupal site, because if the Drupal site went down for whatever reason, you're going to need that list somewhere else. Now, what we'll do then is when we restore a backup, we will then do another process, and we're going to write the scripts for this, although that might come a bit later. But we're going to write scripts for this, that when you have to restore your backup, you can in just one place reapply everything. We think this is a good enough way of applying to complying to the GDPR stuff. There are some people that I think need to go more extreme, and they believe that you actually have to go into the backups and delete them. I've heard some thoughts of using encryption, so you delete the keys. There's lots of different ideas of how we could make it so that all these backups, we also delete it from them. We think that is overkill. We think that won't be necessary. In our blog post where we talk about this, we can give you the evidence of why we believe that's an acceptable way going forwards. There's a lot of organizations that are also taking that approach. And so that's what we're doing. We're very happy if the community disagrees or wants to add other tools to this suite to make it so the backups can also be deleted on. But yeah, things can be cleared up there. And finally, we've got this data export tool. One thing many organizations do is they store loads and loads of, they constantly export things out of Drupal and store lots of people's data, private data, in CSV files or Excel spreadsheets on different machines. Now, definitely, we'd recommend against doing that at all. But if you're going to do that, if you have to do that for any reason, then we've got this data export tool that works with Vue's data exports. And that allows you to set up, this is a GDPR export. You're going to be able to click a button, and it means that when a member of staff clicks the export button from Vue's data export, they get sent to another form where they fill out the reasons, the rationale why they're doing it, the location of the machine, and then they will actually store an entity that saves all the user IDs that are on that export. That might be quite big, and if you keep doing this and you don't clean this up, it's going to start getting unwieldy, so you should encourage your members of staff to not do this too much. But if they do, that's there. And we've also got a tool that means that when a member of staff has finished using it, maybe it was a report to build something in Excel and make a pie chart. Once they've deleted, they can go back into the system and say it's been deleted. And what we'll find, although this has not been built yet, we're almost there, what we'll find is that when we're looking at the tasks for removal or subject access requests, when we're looking at those tasks, we'll find that there's also, we know all the machines that they're on. So if somebody asks to be forgotten, we can go and physically, manually delete that from all of the Excel spreadsheets. So I hope this has been helpful. Very happy to hear some feedback. Be very interested to know what you think of our tools and where you think we've done enough or where you want to help. I'm very intrigued to see where this will go. I think there's a lot of interesting ways that we can move forwards to help this GDPR tool interface with other pieces of software. It would be really cool if the whole community had a more consistent way of doing data removal requests. So if you've got loads of different tools and one place they get asked, we can go to all the other tools. There's lots of interesting things. But for now, this is what it is. Oh, and just so you know, yeah, this is a place where I can see everything they consented to in one place as a member of staff. Thank you. We are Freely Give at freelygive.org.uk, and I'm hoping to make a few more videos about GDPR and about the contacts module. Thank you for watching.